Ciao guys, welcome to another episode of the Personal PR Show. And today we are here with Liza Dai, also known as Lisa Duvo, because her husband is Italian. So of course I had to highlight this. Lisa, welcome to the Personal PR Show. How are you?
I'm doing fabulous. I'm so excited to be here. I was checking on the page. Is this 111th live today? Is that correct?
Yes, exactly. Yes. So usually I go live once a day, and this is the 111th consecutive day. Usually I go live on my own, and then we have the Personal PR Show. We have about, I would say, between 4 and 6 guests per week. That is, of course, live as well. And then I actually go live on Instagram and then on another Facebook group. So I go live three times a day plus the show. And I live live, let's say, like in live format. But anyway, you're live as well today. Do you actually ever go live, Lisa, every now and then on your platforms or so?
I haven't done a lot of lives. I've done a lot of webinars that are live on another organization's platform. So I have done quite a few of those through the audience that I typically speak with. So that's my numbers people, I call them. So I speak to a lot of accounting professionals, and that's one of the main platforms that I reach my audience is through the webinars. And then they're also able to get continuing education. So they're very interested in that, of course, and in my message.
Definitely. I'm about to sneeze, by the way, it could happen at any time. But Lisa, you said accounting professionals. Now, my question, before we get to today's topic, my question is, are most of these accounting professionals Virgo by star sign?
I don't know. That's a great question. I will ask that on my next webinar. That will be my first opening question to get the audience kind of warmed up. What is your sign, and why do you ask that?
Exactly. No, because I'm a Virgo and people tell me, oh yeah, so are you an accountant? And I'm like, no, totally the opposite, to be honest. But I do like my organization, my order and so on in other dimensions, certainly not when it comes to numbers, right? Because me and numbers are two things that will never, are always growing apart and apart and apart, right?
You'll never meet, right? You'll never meet.
To parallel lines, but actually to lines that become more than parallel. Anyway, so yes, that would be a way, of course, to warm up your audience and engage them from the very beginning of your talk. That's true. Good idea. Absolutely. Yes. So Lisa, this leads us to you introducing yourself, I would say, because I'm sure that everybody at home right now is like, okay, but why does she have accountants as her target group?
So that's because that is my backstory. So I've been a certified public accountant for over 25 years. That's really was my career for a long, long time. I served a lot of different roles. I did a lot of different things. I worked in small organizations and large organizations. I traveled some. I stayed domestically. I worked for myself. I worked for others. So I've tried a lot of different things within the accounting profession, and I feel incredibly grateful that I had all those experiences. I learned so much about myself and obviously grew as a professional. So it's a great career. And I think really worldwide, it's one of the most respected professions. So I'm proud to say that I'm part of the accounting profession. We're considered trusted advisors. So that's my backstory. And that's why I really relate to what I call numbers people, because I am a numbers person. So really all those people that are left brain, they love their numbers, they love their spreadsheets, they're, very black and white organized, and a lot of other things. But a lot of those typical characteristics that you think of when you think of analytical people, those are my people, that's me.
Yeah, wow, that's so cool. But what you are offering these people today are rather, I would say, disciplines that are not very super directly related to numbers. For example, leadership, right? So it looks like you are marrying these two dimensions in a beautiful way.
I am absolutely. So when I really pivoted my career, so I got to a point in my accounting career where I really wanted to try something new, something different. I felt I tried a lot of different aspects in the profession and I just wanted something else. I felt like I had more of a draw to help people more personally, more directly in their personal lives. And I wasn't sure what to do with that information. I just knew I wanted something different and I wanted to help people. And I just happened to, through how life is and how things come into your lap when they're supposed to, I took the path of coaching. And that I really connect with because I can see that I'm making a difference in people's lives. And I think for me, since I really understand how numbers people think, that's why when I work with them and I speak with them, I kind of understand where they're coming from, because I had a lot of the exact same thoughts, beliefs, limitations, all those hangups that you have as that type of person. So I'm really marrying my old career with my new career. And I know when I first was making the change, people thought, wow, this is really different. You kind of, like you were saying, they seem totally different, unrelated. And I would agree to a lot of extent, really, because they do seem unrelated from the outside. But, numbers people are humans too. They need help, they need coaching. So for me, it seems like, a good marriage of sorts.
Yes, absolutely. Wow. That is so good. And it's actually connecting us, like this bridging us to the topic of today's conversation. I'm going to read the title, Lisa. So it is called, like our conversation today is called How to Build Strong Interpersonal Relationships Among Your Team Members. So you said that when you were still working as an accountant, you worked in smaller organizations, but also in big organizations, right? And probably I imagine that your team was bigger in a bigger organization. Is this where you started developing this interest, this passion, and certainly this talent as well, this competence for, for building strong interpersonal relationships in a team setting?
I think so, because you see a lot of different dynamics. You have so many different personalities. The larger the team is, typically, you have a different skill set with each person, and then you also bring in that personality. And for me, when I look at the different teams that I worked on, a lot of it was definitely the individual team members. They all had their piece and how they contributed. But a lot of the way the team was affected was how the leader operated. And for me, that's kind of where I see how, teams are impacted initially, or in the biggest way, is through how the leader is. The tone is kind of set at the top, and how everything happens, how you communicate, how you prioritize, how you interact with each other. That kind of tone is set by the leader, and how the leader likes to operate. And that's like the message that they kind of promote throughout the team. So I've seen that strong kind of tie there with what's happening with the leader. Now, if the leader isn't a strong leader, that also has an impact on how the team relates, how they function. And so for me, I think, really kind of forms how the team operates with the message from the leader, essentially. The tone.
Oh my God, yes, and you know what? This is super relevant for our audience, in the personal PR community, because just so you know, so in personal PR we have 4 pillars, and these are basically the tools that we use in order to create visibility and credibility, which leads to impact and income. But these tools or pillars are personal branding, thought leadership, media relations, and I'm just going to mention these things and leave them there. But then we also talk about super connecting, which means networking. It means strategic relationships. It means, partnerships. It means, what else? Like community building and so on. And in this arena, of course, we also have to consider team building, certainly, because if we want to be super connectors and networkers and so on, we have to know also how to relate within a team. If we are a team member or if we are the leader as well, definitely. Plus, most of our audience is basically made of the business owners. And as business owners, usually we do have a small team, like even solopreneurs are usually working with freelancers and so on. So we have to know how to deal with our team. And in this case, we would be the leader, right? Because we are, so to say, the center, and then we recruit and hire all of these people. So this is super relevant for these two reasons. Number one, because we're business owners, and number two, also because this is part of global of super connecting, which is what leads us to personal PR, visibility, and credibility. So I'm super excited to talk about this with you today, because we talk about like many things: community building and networking, strategic relationships, partnerships, and so on, but we never talk about team. And we have you, who is the greatest expert now when it comes to team, especially team, of course, for accountants. Now, we are not met many accountants here, but still it's going to be super relevant. So thank you so much again for making the time today. So Lisa, if I were to ask you, what maybe are the 3 main things that we have to keep in mind as a leader in order to really make sure that strong relationships are built within our team? Like not only us with our team members, but also within team members. What would you say?
Well, I think just like parenting is, your team leaders are going to do what you do, not necessarily do what you say all the time. And so I think you really have to start with the leader doing the inner work, kind of having themselves in a good place, because you can't share what you don't have. I go back to the being on the airplane, and, you need to put your oxygen mask on first before you can help others. So just like every individual leads themselves, I think that's where it all starts, is being a good leader of your own self and doing what I call the inner work, which is working on yourself, recognizing your limitations, working through those, overcoming those, seeing that they do, crop up from time to time. And how do you kind of cope with those? So I think a lot of leaders bring some of their limitations into the team also, which can cause a lot of problems. And so for me, I think it really starts with the leader working on themselves. You can't lead others if you can't lead yourself properly. So I think it definitely starts there. And the other thing is the tone and how the team is regulated, what's the environment of the team? The leader kind of sets the tone that it's, is this, a fun team? Is this a serious team? Is this a work hard, play hard team? Is this a more relaxed team? So it's really, setting the tone for how it's going to work. And it's also, how does the leader kind of work with each of the team members? Is it kind of more an encouraging environment where the leader brings out the best in the individual team members? I would hope. I think those are the highest performing teams for sure. But some leaders, maybe that's not their strong point, so I think it's a little bit of everything. For being in that kind of role, you have to also show your vulnerability. I know this is a really big topic, is talking about vulnerability. So the leader being vulnerable and showing that it's okay to show, okay, you made mistakes and maybe you didn't know everything, whatever the case may be, it's okay to show that side of yourself. So the team members feel like it's okay, I can be myself. If I make a mistake, it's not a huge deal. I'm going to learn from it. My team members will learn from it and we'll go on. It's not going to be a situation like, oh, I look stupid, or I failed, or I made a mistake, or something like that. So it's showing some different sides to yourself and showing that it's okay to, it's not going to be a situation like, oh, I look stupid, or I failed, or I made a mistake, or something like that. So it's showing some different sides to yourself and showing that it's
okay. Okay, good. So we were just joined by Cheyenne, and I've just muted her. Now, Lisa, I'm going to put myself as well into the spotlight. Cheyenne, welcome to our lovely Zoom room. And Lisa, is Cheyenne a friend of yours, by the way?
She is. She is a friend of mine. She is a good networking friend of mine. So yes, I'm excited to see her here. Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. So cool. Welcome, Cheyenne. And Lisa, in a few minutes, we will have Cheyenne join us here in the spotlight in order to ask you one or a few questions.
Perfect.
Right, so,
perfect.
Yeah.
I love
cool.
That. Yeah. And so, just kind of going back to the whole leadership topic, I think another thing is being humble. We've seen enough situations where there's kind of a leader that's arrogant, and that doesn't typically work. That creates a bad atmosphere where, there's this one person up here, this leader that's so much higher than the team members. It sets a bad tone for the team, makes it difficult for them to relate to each other. So I think kind of being humble, being vulnerable, those are two really critically important things for the leader to be. And it sets kind of the environment for the rest of the team members to, relate to each other and how they work together, how they understand kind of their roles within the team.
Yeah, totally. And I have to report that Karen Sanker Martin is writing, leaders definitely set the tone. Yeah, by the way, is Karen a friend of yours as well?
She is a friend of mine, yes.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay, now I'm going to ask you, is Elizabeth De Nigris also a friend of yours?
Yes, she is.
Oh my God, you brought so many people. Bring a friend and you brought a friend. So
I
cool.
did.
Yeah. That's so good. Well done. Awesome. Perfect. So Elizabeth and Karen, if you want to join us here on Zoom, I've just pasted the link to our lovely Zoom room in chat in the Facebook Live. So join us and then you will be able to ask Lisa questions almost in person. By the way, Cheyenne, would you like to ask a question now? You're already here with us on Zoom. I can bring you into the spotlight. Let me see.
Sure.
The spotlight. Okay. Hello, Cheyenne.
Hey, guys.
Hi, how are you? And where are you from? Where are you based? I see the northern lights behind you.
Yeah, I am in Wyoming. I know Lisa. Yeah.
Oh my God, I love Wyoming, the nature that it's one of my dreams to go to Wyoming. Yes. Okay, cool. So would you like to maybe quickly introduce yourself and then ask your question to Lisa regarding leadership and, how to build strong relationships in a team setting?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Cheyenne from Wyoming, with the company Inspiring Solutions for You. Met Lisa when I started my journey as an entrepreneur. I guess my question goes out to Lisa is, how do you encourage your leadership to want to do the self-development? Because I've been a part of some industries where they're really not that open. Like, how are you introducing that so that they become open to that growth?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think depending on the leaders, some are going to be more open than others. And it also depends kind of on the leader above the leader. If that person has an attitude of personal development, being open to doing that inner work, I think that makes a huge difference. Because if they don't feel the need, then they're not gonna make the move and grow themselves in that way. But if they see that that's something that's really encouraged in their company, where they work in their organization, then they should really give it a look. Now, I have been in organizations, and I know you and I have talked, where some people are never going to change. That's just how it goes. And if the organization doesn't support that kind of doing that work that you need to do to be kind of an in-touch leader, to be a humble leader, then it's probably not going to happen. I know we've been in organizations where we've been in toxic environments, and it's really unfortunate, but that was the tone that was set, and what ends up happening, as most of you know, is massive turnover, a lot of really unhappy, people on the team, a lot of disengaged team members, and truly the work product suffers. Whatever you're producing, whether it's a product, a service, some sort of output, it's going to suffer because the people aren't, they don't feel happy in their work. They're not enjoying what they do. They're less committed to it because they don't feel like there's any kind of, positive exchange with their leader. They don't feel valued. I hope that answered your question. So it could be a yes or no. I think as time goes on, more people are open to it, which is great. I think, many years ago, maybe things that we experienced many years ago, they weren't that open to it.
Yeah.
How do you think that will affect their business in the long run? There's been a lot of shift with the quiet quitting and things like that, where people are going into consultant positions instead of the full-time in the office positions. If they don't grasp this concept of growth, I know it's kind of a guess, but how long do you think it will take to really start to affect them? I know it affects them without them realizing it, but as the growth happens throughout corporate, how long do you think that would really affect them as far as when, their profit margin and things like that?
Yeah, I think it'll affect them in ways. It's hard to say if it's going to be like a direct black and white, hit to the profit. But I think, in organizations I've seen, they end up being impacted maybe at a later time. Maybe it's, they get demoted, maybe they lose their position. I think over time, which I'm really encouraged to see, is that a lot more leaders are taking that open dialogue and being that humble leader and really communicating with their team and leading kind of from the heart and allowing team members to, be themselves, function in that way, focus on personal development and growth. I think I've seen a lot of that. I know I was reading some articles about the Zoom layoffs, and I had a post on this, and I think that so the CEO himself, took a 98% pay cut, isn't going to get the bonus, and he held himself accountable. I think that's really huge. I mean, he recognized that he made mistakes. He didn't do enough planning and he took responsibility. That's a huge message. And I think over time, as things like challenging, like layoffs that happen, that people will start going in that direction more. I mean, I think the Zoom CEO is a good example of that. And I think as more and more of those things happen, it'll become more acceptable, for different organizations to see that, yeah, it's okay to say that I made a mistake. I shouldn't have hired that many people and I'm accountable and I'm willing to show it by taking a pay cut. So I think it's a great message that's getting out there more and more in organizations. How long it will take, hard to say. Every organization is different and industry is different, but I think in this particular case, I know the tech industry is taking a lot of hits right now as far as layoffs, but I think, in certain pockets, like a Zoom industry, you're seeing more and more leaders that are kind of taking that humble, accountable position. And it's really reaping a lot of rewards. I think it's buying them kind of a lot of credibility and respect, to be quite honest.
Yeah, I love what you said. And this certainly has a lot to do with leadership, Lisa. But to tell you the truth, it also has a lot to do with public relations. Because a lot of decisions are made not necessarily or not completely because this comes from leadership, but because this is usually recommended, like such moves are usually recommended by publicists, internal publicists, especially that should. And we always say, I'm a publicist myself, right? So I know that's why I know this stuff. And until last year, I was working like in big corporations, like well-known all over the world. And we always say that publicists have to report directly to the CEO. They shouldn't report to the CMO. Public relations has nothing to do with marketing. Marketing is something completely different. But unfortunately, many corporations, the PR person, the publicist will report to marketing, unfortunately. But this is a typical example, the one that you have just told us, the Zoom one, where certainly the publicist was actually reporting to the CEO and was acting as a consultant and advisor to the CEO. Maybe the decision came from the CEO himself anyway, or herself anyway. I don't know if it's a man or a woman. I hope it's a woman. But anyway, that was certainly, in any case, welcomed by, the public relations department. Like when it comes to this, to crisis communications and scandals and so on, the two things have to go hand in hand, definitely. Yeah. So good. This is where basically leadership intersects with public relations. I love these topics. Yes. Cheyenne, do you feel complete with Lisa's answer, or is there anything else that you would like to ask?
I think it's a great answer because I definitely believe in what her message as far as getting people leadership to change their perspective on growth. Because if you collaborate with your team and you have that open, it allows them to also share their insight and things that you may not have noticed yourself because you're removed from how it works. And so when you have that collaborative message and that leadership style, it invites so much more, because as I've learned through a lot of networking, especially in these last few months, the power of collaboration is huge, and it can really shift any business in a really successful light with that. So definitely something that needs to be embraced for sure.
Yeah, I love that. Yes. Oh my God. It seems like the three of us, we're all networkers, like super connectors. I love this. So cool. Yes. So Cheyenne, I'm going to briefly remove you from the spotlight, but should you have any question, feel free to raise your Zoom hand and we will bring you back on stage. Awesome. Remove spotlight. Okay, cool. So Lisa, I have to report that we have another friend of yours, Elizabeth, who would love to join our Zoom room, but she can't because she says, sorry, I can't load the Zoom link. So I don't know, because I've already sent it. This is the link. It's not going to change. I don't know. So please, Elizabeth, try again because it's worth it. So you can ask your question directly to Lisa. But yeah, Elizabeth and Karen, actually, you could also ask your question here in the Facebook Live, and then we'll be able to read it, and I'll read it and ask it to Lisa. Yes. So Lisa, what do you think is the biggest mistake that you see, let's say, entrepreneurs make when it comes to, leadership in their team, in the little or big team that they that they build, right? Because here this group is mainly composed, as we said, by entrepreneurs, right? So basically coaches, consultants, therapists, what I define as what I call personal brands. Basically, they are the face of their company, right? They are their company. They are the face of the company. It doesn't matter if they're solopreneurs or they have a team. In case they have a team, when you work with entrepreneurs or personal brands, what are the mistakes that you see them make mostly when it comes to team?
I think it's not dealing with some of their limitations. It's not making it a bad thing. It's just recognizing that they're there and working through them. And maybe it's certain things that they're not good at. Maybe they're not that great at delegating. And so what they end up doing is taking on too much work and getting burned out, working a ton of hours. And that's never good. So it's kind of recognizing where you are, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? I think, and don't be heavy-handed about it. Don't internalize it, because I hear from a lot of people that, I'm not good enough. I'm not confident. I'm afraid to fail or make mistakes. So I hear that from a lot of people that I talk to, and those are all human things. And, it's just good to recognize them and get them out, and don't feel bad about them. Don't internalize them and make them a bad thing. Just start working on them. And so I think a lot of entrepreneurs, they start out and there's just all these things that they feel that they must do, because they're usually a one-man show or one-woman show. And so it's kind of recognizing that you can't always do it all and that you sometimes need help, and it's recognizing those areas. So if, maybe you're not very good with social media, you get some help in that area, or maybe you're not good with networking, maybe you get some help in that area. So it's really looking at yourself, like I said, doing some of that internal work initially to say, hey, where do I fall a little short? And, don't feel bad about it, but just recognizing it and working through it. It's just like almost looking at a business in a way. If a business wants to grow, how do they grow? They look at their weak spots, they look at their strong points, they emphasize the strong and play down the weak. So, it's kind of working through those, reflection points and thinking, what can I do to really grow myself without feeling that, oh, I'm not good at this, not good at that. It's being more kind of open to it and not emotionalizing the things that maybe are shortcomings.
Yeah, no, absolutely love that. Yes. And Lisa, what do you think of remote teams? Because a lot of entrepreneurs, especially online entrepreneurs, when they have a team, or maybe they just have freelancers, in any case, they're collaborating with these people digitally as well, because they are digital entrepreneurs anyway. And maybe they are, like that team, so to say, is based all over the world. For example, me, I'm based in Zurich, Switzerland. My COO is in Boston. Then I have my relationship manager who's in the Philippines. And then my executive assistant is in the Philippines as well. So it's great because we cover multiple time zones, of course. So somebody's always awake. But at the same time, of course, we are great at working together, of course. But at the same time, sometimes it's not ideal that we can't really get together in person, right? Sometimes it would be even better if we could meet up in person. Hopefully it's going to happen one day. But for now, it hasn't happened yet. So what would you say we, like entrepreneurs, should do in order to really create a collaborative and also fun environment when it comes to remote teams?
I think it's a few things. You have to definitely keep the communication open. Whatever works well, kind of decide early on right away, hey, what is the best way to communicate? And everyone's going to be a little different. You might be, every time you have a problem, just send me a message. Or it might be, hey, can you check in with me at the end of the day and let me know what the issues were? So it's really understanding everyone's kind of needs and preferences first. And, so I think those are kind of the day-to-day tactical things, but I also think you should have like some routine built-in, like team building things, whether it's like, hey, it's Friday, end of the day, let's get on a quick Zoom and just catch up. What are you doing this weekend? So bring some of the fun into it, bring some of the connection into it that way, where it's not always like a formal reason to communicate or get together, but it's a way to get to know that other person. Helps you get like a full picture of what it's like to work with that person, who they are. And it's more fun, obviously. We want to do things that are fun, that makes it less feel like work. It's more enjoyable for everybody. So I think you need communication, you need fun. There needs to be some level of trust, I think. When you ask people, hey, can you do this for me? There's some level of trust that they're going to do it. They're going to do a good job. So a bit of, trust building, which I think helps with the more that you kind of engage with each other, hopefully in person soon for you guys, But, virtual works too when that's all we can do at the time. So I think it's really building the trust, seeing what, you can do to help each other, seeing where our skills are, where we might need some help, those kind of things. And then if something comes up that's like a problem, talk about it. Don't leave it out there, talk about it right away, and, drop the tone down. It's not a negative thing. It's just like, okay, we made a mistake, something fell through the cracks, whatever it may be, just talk about it, get it out. And let's say, how can we prevent this in the future? Why did this happen? Let's see if we can get our bases covered better. So I think it's just really having very candid, open conversations. Like, same thing you would almost have with like a good friend. I think when we're virtual, we have like this distance. I mean, we have great ways to communicate. We have Zoom and all these other different things, but sometimes there's a little gap there, I think. And so it's really almost like you have to engage them a little bit more, a little bit, directly, almost as a friend, because you don't get that day-to-day in-person contact where you can kind of read different signals and things. So I think you might have to do a little bit more virtually than you would have to do if you're in person.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my God, I love this. And I have to report, Lisa, that Elizabeth is writing something here in chat. So she said, Lisa knows I left a team lead who wanted to be everything and control the team and is failing overall as he didn't recognize this. I chose to leave with the help of Lisa to a new team and a new leader. And wow, what a difference. She kept telling me I need to make a switch, and I finally found the right fit and made the move. Oh my God, this is amazing. Congratulations, Elizabeth, and well done, Lisa. So would you like to tell us a little bit more about this story and maybe the principles behind it?
Sure, definitely. I think, I spoke to Beth a lot through her journey on this different team. And, there's times when you give people a break because they're having a bad day or something stressful happened or whatever. But then there's times where it's like, well, after giving them a number of breaks, time's up. If somebody isn't functioning well as a leader and you're really not getting what you need as a leader, that development, those teaching moments, you're just not getting them, then you can't stay there because you're not going to grow. And that's basically where she got to. She asked multiple times. She wanted to learn this. She wanted some coaching on that from this person. And it wasn't happening. And she wasn't growing in the ways that she needed to. And, a lot of other negative undertones. I think there's a lot of blaming and excuses and just not taking responsibility for your actions or what need to get done. And that's really not a quality leader that does that. And I knew she wasn't going to grow the way she wanted to. And fortunately, she found another team where she's really in kind of a good sync with this new leader. And she's learning a ton. I mean, even in the first 2 weeks, she learned more than she did in months and months at the other team. So, kind of right away when you kind of sink in and you're starting to feel like you're growing really quickly right away because you're in the right fit.
Yes, absolutely. Oh my God, I love this. Well done to both of you. Yes, yes, yes. And Lisa, unfortunately, we are approaching the end of our conversation, but I do have one last question that I would like to ask you. Some people find it silly. It's a question that I ask everybody at the end of the episode. Some people find it silly. Some people are like, oh, this is actually a very good question. Let's see what your reaction is and especially what your answer is. So the question goes, Lisa, what is something that I didn't ask you over the past 44 minutes, but I should have asked you?
I have two short answers to that. I knew you asked that question because I watched your other interviews, so I was sort of ready. But my first kind of request, or I would say kind of call to action, would be to ask people to really take the time to reflect on themselves. We're so busy these days. And I think we just get caught up in that. And then we don't really sit and think about what do we really want in life? And how do I need to get there? Where do I need help? So those things. So kind of having those conversations. And another thing is that I'd like to share is kind of a thing that I try to do every day. And it's kind of on my background here. It's always adding something to people's lives, even if it's something small, even if it's just holding the door open. And with my group of coaches that I work with, we call it the impression of increase. So we're leaving people better off than the way we found them. So I just those are two of my things that I always ask people to think about. Even if it's something very small, do something really small every day to help anybody, a stranger or a friend, no matter what it is, you'll feel great, they'll feel great, and it just is so much happier of a world to live in if we can give out that kindness. So those are questions that I would, what would you ask people to do? That would be the question that I wish you asked me.
Yeah, yes. So I asked the 2 questions and you have already given amazing answers. And by the way, your second answer reminds me of the writing that I see here for you. So you wrote, let kindness ripple. I love this. So kindness is one of your core values, right?
Yes, it absolutely is. Because I think when you put that out in the world and when you express kindness to other people, it just has such a profound effect. Even if it's something really small, you made their day for an hour or whatever it is, or you made them feel better, or maybe you made them feel great for a week, whatever it is, it's those little things. And then they pass it on, it's that pay it forward idea. And so I think it's just one of those things. If you can keep that going, it'd be a lot better place to live, don't you think?
Oh yeah, definitely, absolutely. And I'm sure that Cheyenne agrees as well. So I'm going to bring her back into the spotlight. Cheyenne, is there any more questions that you would like to ask Liza?
There's not. I think she did a fabulous job and she's a wonderful connection. I'm very thankful I've met her.
Yeah, I'm so happy that we met as well. And by the way, Liza and you and I were connected by Portia. Portia is our resident guest here on the Personal PR Show. She comes on the show once a month. And every time we talk about a different topic, but of course her main angle is storytelling. And Portia is known as Portia the producer because she used to work as a producer in TV and now she's a producer in radio. So so at the beginning of our conversation, Liza, when you and I still hadn't gone live here on Facebook, you told me that you wanted to tell us the story of you and Portia, how you girls met in Cleveland, Ohio. Do you want to tell it now?
Sure.
I
can tell it. Yeah, so we met at a live event. I will call it a women's wellness and empowerment event. And it was kind of a small group, maybe 25 to 30 women that were really there to just have very open, candid conversations. And that's how we met. And it was in a clothing store. So it's an unusual way to kind of meet. And I hadn't met her. We both attended the event. And then we both afterwards, it was kind of open socializing, networking. And we actually met over a clothing rack. She was looking at one end, I was looking at the other end, looking through things. And that's how we met. And then later on, we got each other's contact information and connected. And we had a great conversation. Portia invited me to be on her podcast. And then we've just been best friends ever since. I think the world of her. She's a fantastic person. She's so giving, super talented, driven woman. I mean, just an absolute great person to have in your network. So I'm thrilled that she's working with you. You're going to enjoy it.
Oh, yes, I mean, yeah, it's totally amazing. I couldn't let her go. I was like, she came once on the show and I was like, you have to be our resident guest. I want you here once a month. And she said yes immediately. So we're super excited. Yes. So it's lovely to see how highly you speak of Portia. And I have to say that she speaks super highly of you as well. So when she introduced us, she was with these little hearts in her eyes. This is what I could see in her eyes when she was talking about you. Yes. And she told me an amazing quote that was authored by you. I can't remember the quote anymore, but she mentioned it on the Personal PR Show. So guys, if you want to see that quote, to hear that quote, then you can go to the last episode that we had with Portia and then you will hear it. But Liza, do you remember it now? Because I'm sure that you have lots of quotes. Do you know which quote she was talking about?
Sure, I can share it. It is, sometimes you have to give up something precious to get something priceless.
Yes.
And that's very meaningful to Portia, I know, for a lot of reasons. This past year, she's had some losses in her life, but she's turned those losses into really triumphs in her life. She's been making huge strides and growing enormously, like every single day as a person. Every week she's doing something new and awesome in her work and how she helps people. So she's really taken a very difficult, sad, kind of tragic situation and turned it around for the better. So she's really a great example of how to turn, difficult situations into times of growth and times of giving to others.
Yeah, that was exactly the first the topic that we discussed on the first episode of Portia here on the Personal PR Show. Yes, exactly. And she told us the story like in great detail as well of her mom's transition. And I'm so proud of, as you just said, as how she was able to leverage that and to turn it into something beautiful. Yeah, amazing. So we'll have Portia very soon here on the show, back here on the show, I think in about 1 or 2 weeks. We can't wait for that. Portia, if you're watching this, lots of kisses to you. Thank you so much for introducing me to Liz. What do you say, Liz? Lisa. Do they ever call you Liz sometimes?
I have had people call me that, but most people call me Lisa.
Okay, good, because I have a friend. She's called Lisa, but I call her Liz. That's why it came out this time. Okay, cool. Cheyenne, it was lovely to meet you as well. Hopefully we will stay in touch. And yes, thank you so much, ladies, for joining us today. Thank you, Elizabeth, as well, and Karen as well. Thank you, Lisa, for bringing so many friends. We had a little party here on the Personal PR Show today. And thank you to everybody at Renette is with us as well. Is she a friend of yours as well?
Yes.
Awesome. You brought 5 friends. Incredible.
Yes.
Wow, this was a real party. So we partied hard here on the Personal PR Show. Come back soon, Lisa, with all of your friends. It was lovely, and lovely friends at home as well. So thank you so much for watching us, and we'll see you soon for another episode of the Personal PR Show. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thanks, Jessica.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.